If you've been having trouble in the Paradox Junction Easter egg, look no further than this video. In here, I've got a list of tips for you to make the Easter egg significantly easier at all stages and get you a bunch of upgrades and salvage that's going to mean that you're more powerful earlier in your match, and it'll make the Easter egg a cakewalk. So without further ado, subscribe and let's get started. To begin with, did you know you can Pack-a-Punch in Paradox Junction without unlocking the Pack-a-Punch? In fact, the process to get this started begins on round 1 if you want it to. So what you're going to do is you spawn into your game and then immediately start shooting the hands on this clock here. You need to get it so the hour hand is on 1 and the minute hand is on 15, so that the time spells out 1:15 or 1:15. Then progress through the next couple of rounds as normal, and when you get to your next dog round, at the end of that round, it will teleport you back into the past. And this happens every time you go to dogs, but because you've set the clock up, when you then go back to that area beneath where the clock is, you'll have a ton of rewards, including a gold weapon, which is an insane reward, and a Pack-a-Punch crystal, and some other goodies on the floor to pick up as well. This is an unbelievable Easter egg to make your run much faster and more points and salvage efficient, so you should be doing this every single game. So that takes a couple of rounds to do, right? You got to get past your first dog round, but there is progress in the Easter egg that you can make prior to that point. You can pick up the acid vial, you can use the sink and get your acid, you can listen for the ringing mannequin, you can fill the ringing cyst, and you can find the ringing wall ink for the wonder weapon parts. Now, obviously, if you haven't teleported back to the past yet, then you won't have been able to open up the truck to get into Trinity Avenue. So there is a chance that RNG is not on your side and some of the stuff that you need to find is actually out there. But you can be tactical about this to avoid wasting rounds, and if you know for a fact that none of the mannequins in the main area of the map are ringing and the only ones that could be ringing are in Trinity, then when you get teleported to the past, you should just drop your acid on all of the mannequins in the Trinity Avenue area. By doing this, you get to go back to Destroyed after you've taken your trip to the past, and you don't waste any time. You still get your hammer part for the Blundergat. Now, if you still don't get the part from doing this, then it means that a different mannequin in your game is ringing, right? You need to listen out for it. But the good news is that you're actually already making progress towards a free perk just by having done this. So the next time you go back to Destroyed, you're going to refill your acid vial at the acid sink, and you'll then, when you're next in the past, gonna continue to drop acid over all the mannequins in the map. So that's the 3 that we already mentioned. There's another mannequin against the white picket fence to the right of the PAP truck. To the left of the yellow house garage by this fence, there's another. Then in the yellow house backyard against the garage wall, there's another. The yellow house has another by the swing set. Inside the yellow house by the staircase, there's another. The greenhouse garage mannequin by the crafting bench. The greenhouse garden has one on the right. Also, on the back side of the greenhouse, on the deck balcony, you can find one. And in the greenhouse kitchen by the stove, there's another mannequin. And dropping acid on all of those in the past will require multiple trips back to Destroyed to refill your acid vial. But once you've dropped acid over all of them, the final mannequin that you apply the acid to will have a random perk power-up for you waiting when you get back to Destroyed. Next, throughout the Easter egg, you'll need loads of different equipment. Explosives, tomahawks, molotovs, and you need to brain rot a zombie at one point as well, which you can also do with a sight grenade. But this is kind of annoying if maybe you're not high enough level to purchase the stuff that you need to use. And this map's a bit more stingy about giving stuff out for free compared to some of the previous maps where you get free tomahawks and free frags and everything everywhere you look. But even though the game is more stingy, you do still have some options. Number 1, you could try using elemental pop, right? And there's always an RNG chance that that's going to give you the brain rot that you're looking for. But that's not that reliable, right? Another option would be to make sure that anytime a TED trial spawns in, you are hitting those up, because they can give you alternate ammo types as one of the rewards that you get, and you could get brain rot from that without even having to spend any salvage. And then outside of that, you basically gotta hope for the best from drops from zombies and look out for the grenades that you need from them. Next, dogs can kind of screw over your Easter egg progress in this a little bit because there are certain steps in the Easter egg that cannot be completed on dog rounds, and you also have to bear in mind that dogs are going to flip you from wherever you are to the other version of Nuketown, and that might mean that you end up having to waste points going back again, or you're just annoyed because you're trying to get a tormented zombie, for example, and the dogs send you to the past when you need to be in destroyed, right? So plan ahead for this. If you know that you've got a dog round coming up, let's say you had dogs on round 5 or something, and you're getting to round 9, round 10, that kind of area, you might want to plan to be in the past so that when the dog round happens, it happens in the past, and then it flips you back to destroyed for the following round, and because you're then starting that round in destroyed, you could get your tortured zombie spawn, rather than having to flip around back and forth and then flip another round and go through all of that stress. Next, more help for tortured zombies. I've seen a lot of kind of confusion about this, and we'll talk about boss fight later in the video, obviously, as well. But the first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that you don't start any of your rounds in destroyed while standing in the back of the yellow house or the back of the greenhouse, or in that little alley in Trinity Ave. The reason being, those are the spawn points for the tortured zombies, and there is a chance that you spend a second or two there, you get one of them spawning in, and then you trigger it to leave the tornado earlier than you want, and that's going to kind of screw you over. So the easiest way to do this is to make sure that you're kind of hoarding in the middle of the map area so you don't trigger any of those spawn points, and then you get to the end of the round with one zombie left, and while that zombie is alive, you go walk over to your tortured zombie, spawn it out of its tornado, and then bring it to the bench where you need it. However, another tip that I have for you here is you can actually kind of have a bit of control over which zombies are attacking the tortured zombie by just getting away from the tortured zombie as fast as you can. So once it's spawned in and it's running around, if you sprint really far away, the zombies are all going to be chasing you, right? And the tortured zombie is only going to be stumbling at a certain pace, and that'll mean that there aren't any zombies in close proximity to the tortured zombie to sap its life, and therefore it can make its way all the way across the map without actually being hindered. This is a little bit hit or miss because there is a chance you get unlucky and there just happens to be another zombie near it and then it does take some damage, but it's worth keeping in mind, and it applies in the boss fight as well, and we'll talk about that again later. Another tip for the tortured zombies is you can actually shoot the zombie with the wonder weapon when you're right next to the truck instead of being inside the truck. It's still going to work. Like, you don't need the roof over your head for it to get sucked. You can do it outside and it's still going to get sucked totally fine. Another tortured zombie tip is you can't turn the tortured zombie with a psych grenade. So if you've got a horde of zombies around the tortured zombie and you pop a psych grenade, that's going to mean that those zombies no longer affect the tortured zombie, and your tortured one will still keep staggering towards you. The same actually also applies to decoys, so you can just keep throwing those to get the regular zombies out of the way so your tortured has a clear path. Next, it's kind of annoying having to have depth perception in this Easter egg to pick up the headphones. Like, that is a little frustrating, but you don't actually have to see with your eyes where the headphones are because they've got quite a wide area where you can hold interact and they will pick up. So as long as you go to all 3 of the spawn points that I showed in my main quest guide, you should be completely fine. You just need to hold square around there and you'll get them. But a tip that not a lot of people know is that the headset is also available to be detected on controller vibration. So if you've got that turned on, when you get near the headset, it will start vibrating, and when you get really near it, it will vibrate even faster. So you can use that to know that you're at the correct spawn point. Now, once you've got depth perception and you've knocked that step out, you might think, oh, well, this perk's not really doing a lot for me, so it's kind of a shame that I had to buy it. But depth perception is used for another Easter egg in this map, which you now may as well do. The quest is only available to do once you've built the wonder weapon, and what you're going to look for is a key outline in one of the flower pots around the map. There are 14 flower pots, I believe. There may even be 1 or 2 more that I'm not aware of, but I'm going to show you all 14 spawns that I know now. One is on Trinity Avenue by the front door of the purple house. One is hanging outside the map to the right of the gobblegum machine just here. One is outside the yellow house front door. 3 are hanging above the car in the middle of Nuketown. 3 more are hanging in the yellow house backyard. 3 more are hanging here in the greenhouse backyard. There's another by the garden here. And lastly, there's one upstairs in the greenhouse on this table. Get close to the flower pots and look for a red glowing outline, and then shoot it once you find it, but do not shoot any of the flower pots which do not have a glowing outline. Then, once you've shot a flower pot with a key in it, you need to recheck all the other flower pots and look for another key. And you're going to do this 5 times in a row, and after you shoot the 5th key inside a flower pot, it will drop a key onto the floor, which you can pick up. You need to take this key to the upstairs of the greenhouse in the bedroom, and you can use it on this suitcase here, and that will drop you an ether tool at the very least, with chances for free perks and other loot too. Next, there's a way to get a guaranteed Pack-a-Punch Tier 3 crystal every single game. So once you build the Wonder Weapon, 7 items will spawn around the map. There are 3 in Destroyed, that's the guts underneath this truck by Pack-a-Punch, the bone in the soil of the greenhouse garden, and a head in the room you open with the RCXD. Then in the past, there are 4 items. One's a car battery on the floor of the truck. One's a bucket in the yellow house garage by this door. One's big meat in the greenhouse kitchen. And one's a dog collar next to the garage door that we blew up with the RCXD. You're going to pick all of those up and then bring all 7 items to Destroyed, go to the back of the greenhouse and find this purple cyst. Place all 7 items in front of the cyst by interacting 7 times, and then activate the cyst by interacting, and it will become a soul box. Purple-eyed zombies will spawn in, kill them all. When it's done, have multiple HVTs all spawn in. There'll be a dog, a doppelgast, a mimic, and an armored zombie. The doppelgast is weak to light mend, and the mimic is weak to brain rot, and I 100% recommend using those on this because they are extremely strong HVTs. Some other suggestions would be to use the Shadow Rift Big Game Augment and try that out, because that also allows you to kind of chunk them in quite a significant way. However, regardless of your method to take them all down, once they're all dead, the final one will drop you 2,000 salvage, a free perk can, and a tier 3 Pack-a-Punch crystal. Another Easter egg you can do as you play through the main quest here is the floating head Easter egg, and this one gets you tons of points and doesn't progress the round either, so it's a really great one to do if you're a little bit poor. To do it, you need to find the head on the ground just here and interact with it, and it will fly into the air, and you then need to chase it, and wherever it stops, it will then spawn in purple zombies, and you're on a time limit to fill it with the souls of the purple zombies. If you fail, you'll have to re-interact with it to get it to start again, but if you succeed, it will move to another location, and you just do this a couple of times, and then when you filled it in the final location, you get a bunch of rewards. But the nice thing about this is that you will get points credit from taking out the purple zombies, so it means that you just essentially get a bunch of extra kills for free. Now, if this head isn't spawning for you, it's a sign that you're not late enough into your game. I believe you do need the gap built in order for this to work, and I think you have also got to have placed the chalk and the seat on the swing set, and only then will you find the original spawn of the floating head. And what's nice about this is if you do this Easter egg before you fight all of those HVTs, you can get yourself like an extra PAP crystal, and that might mean that you're a bit stronger to take the HVTs down, and then the HVTs will boost you further. So you can kind of chain these Easter eggs together and then save your points for things like flipping back and forth between past and destroyed. So next, let's talk some of the Easter egg steps in the map and make those a bit easier for you. Starting with hopscotch. I've seen a lot of people having some serious skill issues with this thing. And honestly, the biggest tip I have for this is just to slow down. You can actually really take your time. The ascent up the grid initially just requires you to time it correctly where you jump over the black box and then you're golden, but on the way back, just let that black box past you when it flips from 1 to 11, and then once it's moving back towards the start again, you can just follow behind it and you'll be completely fine. But obviously be aware of the fact that if you take really long, then when the black box gets back to 1, it will loop back to 11 again and it will start chasing you, so you then will need to get a move on. Next, the basketball that spawns for Foursquare can only spawn after you interact with the toy box in past Nuketown and you insert the goggles and the headset. But as for Foursquare itself, you don't have to do this with every person in your team. I actually think it's easier to have teammates hold the zombies, and then you just have one person in the square, and you just melee it to an adjacent square, and then melee it right back again. But just a regular knife, if you're holding that out, back and forth, should make this very easy. Next, for bouncing your balls, this can be quite hard if you're bad at aiming. But this tip makes this significantly easier in my experience. So you're gonna try to line up the spawn of your Wisp T for right when you're about to start the game. And then if you have Wisp active during the game, it will knock all zombies away from the circle before the ball can bounce on the ground. And that obviously assists you a great deal as they reset, and means that it's almost like having another player helping out while you're trying to do it. However, this will not work, I believe, if you're using the zombie sitter augment on the Wisp, so be wary of that. Next, I think the best weapons for the boss fight are ones with range. Now, obviously, the meta for bosses changes all the time, right? And there's often new guns that get added to the game later in the game's life cycle, which end up retroactively being better, right? But for the time being, just using a ranged weapon is a really good idea. Damage fall off is not a huge deal for this boss in my experience. So your choice of primary weapon is not really going to be the difference maker here, I don't think. I think it's some of the other choices that you make, both tactically and then also in your rest of your loadout. So equipment in this Easter egg is essential. It's so essential. And so I'd say that using the Mule Kick Augment fully equipped to carry an extra piece of equipment for both grenade slots is one of the most valuable tweaks to your loadout that you can make, period, out of everything. Also, make sure that you're using Vulture Aid with Picky Eater. That's a really good idea. And I also think that my absolute favorite, Hot Foot on Stamina Up, is quite nice to have too. Next, there's a really cool interaction with the fire tornadoes in the boss fight, and if you've been having trouble with them, this tip's gonna really help you out. I wanna give a shout out to Donuts for finding this one. Basically, those fire tornadoes are gonna chase you, right? But they will not path over Molotov fire, which is on the floor. So if there's a specific place where you want to avoid that fire tornado going, if you throw a Molotov there, it will not path into that area. Next, let's talk about the tortured zombie in the boss fight, because I think this is the hardest element of the boss for a lot of players, especially in solo. So option one, throwing monkeys or decoys so that all the other zombies in the map run towards that, and then your tortured zombie still walks towards you. That is a viable path that you can take. You just want to make sure, obviously, that you're sort of yeeting your monkey a good distance away from wherever the tortured zombie is going to walk, and that way it won't be getting sucked by the zombies while it's on its journey. However, there's another option that you've got for the tortured zombie, and that's to actually just pick it up and bring it with you where you want it to go. Yeah, I first saw this from Zone, not sure if he's the original finder of it, but if you bring in a Disciple Injection score streak, you can pick up a tortured zombie, and then once you're next to the big blob that you need to escort it to, you can just yeet it at the blob, and that's done. You've completed your tortured zombie step, or at least you've completed one of them. Then as soon as you've done that, you can suck all the zombies around you, and you're going to want to get as many of them as you can, and that's going to restore some of the life to your Disciple Injection, and then you can try, within one injection, to go and suck another tortured zombie and then yeet it at the next black blob. I think realistically, in the time that you have, you're not going to be able to do more than one, probably because of the defense element. But if you're a god at sucking those zombies, then there is, I suppose, always a chance. Now, by far the easiest method for the tortured zombies, irrespective of everything else I've said, is to just do what I said at the very beginning of the video when I was talking about the tortured zombies earlier in the Easter egg, and that's to just stay away from them. Because those tortured zombies are going to spawn in the middle of the map, right? And when they do, they're going to start walking towards you. And so if you're keeping a really tight horde of zombies around you, exactly where you need the tortured zombie to go, it's going to make its own way over to you, and it's not going to get damaged by other zombies because you've already got all the zombies on the map hoarded in one little tiny area. And so it can walk unperturbed towards the objective, and then you can obviously just run over to it and take it out when it's in the right spot. So rather than trying to clear the entire battlefield of all zombies and having them respawning on the tortured zombie, instead, try keeping more of the zombies in a bundle and let the tortured zombie walk on its merry way. Now, another tip for this Easter egg that I think is really important to consider is you can do the Easter egg slowly over many rounds, but it's going to make your life more difficult, right? Sure, it might mean that you get to Pack-a-Punch Tier 3 and you get your gold weapon and this and that. That's cool and all, but there are so many time optimizations that you can make in this Easter egg to save rounds and therefore save zombie acceleration and therefore need less powerful weapons, etc. And there are so many side Easter eggs that you can do in this Easter egg that mean that you get your PAP 3 crystal, you get your gold rarity, etc. for free. And what this means is, in conjunction, what I think you should be doing is trying to get as powerful as you possibly can from side quests, while also flipping as few rounds as you possibly can for the main quest steps. And if you want to know exactly how to do that, on screen right now, I've linked my optimized version of the guide. So that's how to do the Easter egg reliably on a really low round. And that's going to mean that the zombies are easier to take down, you just have an easier time overall, and it's going to be that much more likely that you can clap the boss's cheeks, if hearts have cheeks. So click through to that video now, and I'll see you there.